Welcome back to my channel, everybody. It's Leah with Skin Beautiful RX, and today I'm really excited for this video. I know I say that all the time, but this is something I'm very passionate about, and I know who I am with. He is extremely passionate about this subject as well. I am joined with Dr. McGuire from Neogenesis. Dr. McGuire is the brain, I don't even have a good word to describe how brilliant you are when it comes to being able to formulate these amazing formulations that are not only anti-aging, but they have the ability to help so many people all over really recover from, traumatic surgeries like I just had with my skin cancer and other things that people are going through, be able to really recover what they're going through. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you for the invite. Yeah, it's always wonderful to be with a fellow passionate scientist who really cares about what we're doing with skincare and skincare products, and pleasure to be here. And yes, we're very proud of being able to help those with aged skin as well as those who are afflicted with various skin conditions. And that's always been my mission in life. I'm as you know, a university medical school professor, and it's been my lifelong passion to try and help people in any way that I can, and that now includes bringing technology and products to market. So thank you for the opportunity to have the back and forth discussion about what we're all doing together.
Absolutely. Well, when I put out my video a little over a month ago about my skin cancer and having to go through that and everything it entailed, I had a lot of people comment or email me, DM me, and their main question, which I think is so important to talk about, is could my use of growth factors have contributed to my skin cancer? And I wanted you actually to be able to kind of explain that answer.
It harkens back to decades-long research on my part and standing on the shoulders of many scientists and scientist physicians dating back to the 1800s, actually, in Germany. German physician scientists first began to use full thickness skin as a skin transplant, removing skin from one part of the body, transplanting it to another. That full thickness of skin contains the stem cells and the molecules that they release. All of the stem cell types that we use at Neogenesis are contained within that full thickness of skin that's been used to transplant now for well over 100 years. So scientists, physicians have been very careful to follow not only the efficacy, does it work? And yes, of course it works. It's been used well over 100 years, but is it safe? And is it safe in the short term? Is it safe in the long term? And the answer is yes for both. Acutely safe, longitudinally safe, and many studies to follow, not only full thickness skin grafts, but we all know about fat grafts, and the fat grafts contain some of the stem cells that Neogenesis use. And yes, these cells are very efficacious. The molecules they release are very efficacious. The fat graft over long-term studies is perfectly safe. The Neogenesis technology helps protect from mutagenesis, does not cause mutagenesis, repairs to some degree mutagenesis, and rebuilds the matrix. The Neogenesis molecules contain a protein called HAPLN1, which has been demonstrated to be reducing as we age and leads to cancer. When you don't have the HAPLN1 to keep the matrix together and you have mutations occurring because of sun damage and so forth, you begin to see things like melanoma. And if you return the HAPLN1 back to the skin, then you reduce the melanoma and you reduce the metastasis, the spread of the cancer. So there's many lines of evidence showing that not only does the stem cell are the stem cell types from the skin not cause cancer, but they're actually cancer preventing. A group up in the San Francisco Bay Area took the stem cells that we use from cancer patients and then put them into a dish to see if the stem cells from cancer patients had oncogenic potential. They don't. Perfectly safe. That's why we use, one of the reasons why we use the stem cells from the skin. That's opposed to stem cells from other parts of the body. Our company, a couple of other companies, are very careful about the stem cells they choose. I won't mention their names. They have good technology. They're careful to use similar stem cells to what we use. There's some other companies that use stem cells from the bone marrow, and this is dangerous. And I could go in and have papers published on why it's dangerous, but one of the things that happens in the bone marrow is a site of recirculated cells. So cancer, we all have cancer cells in our bodies, but our immune system keeps it at check. And unless we dysregulate our immune system as we're aged, then the immune system doesn't work so well and it doesn't check the cancer. But so we all have these cancer cells floating through the body, through the blood. And the blood carries these cancer cells into the bone marrow. It's called recirculated cancer cells. And they accumulate in the bone marrow, and then these cancer cells actually educate the bone marrow mesenchymal stem cells to become cancer-like. And there's demonstrated patients where they've had a bone marrow stem cell transplant from donor to recipient. The recipient has cancer. They do the genetics to look at the cancer cells, and the genetics of the cancer cells in the recipient match the donor. So the donor's bone marrow was cancerous.
Oh, wow.
And it's hard to detect. These are why we don't use those cells. It's very hard to detect. Only the very best scientists using the very latest techniques can detect whether these bone marrow stem cells are cancerous. Even in the hospitals, they're not able to detect it. And that's why bone marrow stem cell transplant patients, one of the reasons why they have so much trouble, is they're transplanting pro-inflammatory cancerous cells oftentimes, or at least sometimes, into patients. So we don't use those cells. We're very careful to use these cells that physicians have been using for well over 100 years, demonstrated safety, demonstrated efficacy, no pro-cancerous effects, not the cells, not the molecules from the cells. It is very well thought out, and it is based on literally thousands of different scientists' work over the last 120 years or so.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I know I had a lot of people really afraid that they were going to have to give up their Neogenesis products. And I was like, no, absolutely not. So yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say that. And one of the other questions that I get a lot is it just skin cancer that people should be worried about, or is it all types of cancer when they're looking at using a growth factor that it can kind of not inhibit cancer growth or help cancer growth? But is it just skin cancer, or is it all types of cancer?
You're predominantly, if you're applying the molecules to the skin, they're going to concentrate themselves in the skin. So you're predominantly worrying whether or not you're going to develop a skin cancer. That's not to say that if you're pouring these molecules onto an open wound, for example, that they might go into the blood supply. So there could be some small concentration of the molecule, especially because these various stem cell types, including the stem cells we use, package the molecules into exosomes, which are protective, very protective of the molecules inside. And so they are able to travel. The molecules we use travel mostly in the skin. Use it in an open wound, there's some potential that it could go into the blood. And but even in that case, these molecules, even if supplied to the blood in high concentration, or put in orally at high concentration, there's absolutely no sign of toxicity, tumor growth, mutagenesis. So we've done the studies, for example, to see whether the molecules even mutate DNA, which is one of the factors in developing cancer. And no. And then actually looking for tumors throughout the body, and absolutely none. And that can't be said for some of the other stem cells. So we've tried a whole variety of different stem cells for years, focused on the ones that we do. If any evidence were to come along suggesting that we should do something different, of course, we would immediately change. But I've been working on these stem cells since 1997. The way I originally entered into stem cell therapeutics was I was working on neurodegeneration at the University of California. And my laboratory was collaborating where we were taking the stem cells that we currently use and genetically modifying them to produce a growth factor, nerve growth factor. And we discovered that the normal stem cells work better than the genetically modified cells squirting out the nerve growth factor. And it led us to understand it was an experiment that didn't work. The nerve growth factor didn't work as well as the control, where the stem cell was just releasing its natural complement of molecules. So that failed experiment taught us something. It taught us that Mother Nature knew what she was doing. It was releasing the perfect complement of factors. And this is not only growth factors. I'm not sure if you want to hear, but there's a number of other proteins and molecules besides growth factors that enable this technology to be very safe and effective. It includes a whole range of antioxidants to repair and protect DNA. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of the protein in our body, especially in the skin, the eye, the outside of the eye, for example, the proteins are long-lived proteins. They're there throughout life or for many, many years in your life. They don't rapidly turn over, these proteins, and they accumulate damage. Even as you simply age, they'll accumulate damage. And so they need to be protected and repaired. And part of the Neogenesis technology, with all the different types of antioxidant proteins we have, it repairs and protects DNA and long-lived proteins. And we all are insulted daily from the environment and damaged, and you have to repair. So we have a lot of the molecules that institute the repair. But if you can't repair, say you can't repair a protein, that it's damaged, and we have these heat shock proteins in our mix of molecules. They're called chaperone proteins. They go in and they repair other proteins. But some proteins become so damaged they can't be repaired. So in the mix of proteins from the stem cells is a protein called a proteasome. And it goes in and it seeks out the damaged proteins in our body. It engulfs them, packages them, carries them to what we call the lysosome. And then that protein is recycled. It's broken down into its constituent amino acids. So then those amino acids can be used by the cells, by the body, to make new proteins. So I could go on, but there's a whole lot of different proteins and other molecules besides the growth factors that are so important for the safety and efficacy of our technology. And so I just applaud and stand on the shoulders of so many great scientists from around the world who have done so much good work and taught me so much over the years. So this is what has led us to use the cells and the molecules that we use.
We have so many different products, and I use growth factors and stem cell conditioned media interchangeably, so I apologize. And for you, that's probably nerve-wracking. But we sell so many but different brands, and I have to say the science and the formulas that Neogenesis has been able to bring to the market, there's just a difference. You can feel the difference. You can see the difference with, scar recovery, burn recovery. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So yeah, you may applaud other people, but we applaud you. So that it's really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of leads into my next question. Can you kind of explain why? I don't know if you probably don't know this, but I have been using recovery on my scar on my forehead, and I did wait until the wound had completely closed. But literally, when I started putting it on, I don't know if it was like in my head, but I felt like my skin tighten. Like it was the weirdest thing. So I don't know if that was in my head or not, but I felt it. But can you kind of explain why Neogenesis recovery is just so amazing for wound healing? Like we know it's great for anti-aging, but it really becomes that workhorse when you put it on a surgical wound. So like, what is happening?
I was amazed when I first used it as well. My studies in neurodegeneration and repair date back to, my goodness, the 1980s. We realized, since skin and brain both derive from neuroectoderm, that there were going to be common pathways. So we started taking the technology that we're using for the brain studies and applying it to wounds in the skin. We put the technology on the open wounds, and we got this most excellent result compared to control. And we also noticed, quite shockingly, based on the then known science, that even the intact skin, so the skin that wasn't wounded, but the skin around the margins where the technology was being applied, even the intact skin with perfect or certainly very good stratum corneum barrier function was becoming more healthy, was being repaired. And we didn't understand why at the time. It has to do with the exosomes. It's a nanosphere, and it's got a lipid bilayer. It's fatty, and it's able to penetrate through the stratum corneum, we find out. We realized at that point experientially that we could hasten wound healing and have a better result than normal. So we found out the natural healing that occurs when we're in the womb is caused by the skin stem cells that close the wound normally, make that skin nice and natural, and keep the skin from inflaming. Mm-hmm. So if you have an open wound, whether it's surgical or otherwise, you brought blood into that wound, and you're inducing rapid closure, inflammation, potential scarring, hypercellular proliferation, which can be oncogenic. So long-term scarring, scientists since the 1980s have known that long-term scarring is a precursor for cancer. So, and that's because all this blood supply product is coming in, inducing inflammation, rapid cellular turnover, and doing that for a long period of time. So the skin stem cells calm that down. Mm-hmm. But if you have an open wound, right in the wound, it's the blood that's predominating, and the skin stem cells are overpowered. And so what we're doing is bringing in the molecules from the skin stem cells that reset. First of all, very quickly, they reset the immune system. So I'll mention the innate, the adaptive immune system, macrophages, T cells. The damage in the blood supply is induced inflammation in both the innate and adaptive immune system. You put the stem cell molecules on from the skin, they reset inflammation, both the innate and the adaptive immune system. They reset the immune system from pro-inflammatory to repair mode very quickly. So very quickly you feel reduced inflammation, and therefore reduced pain. And pretty quickly, the whole system, including the immune system. And the skin has a very rich immune system, very rich. You can now, using just microneedles into the skin, you can immunize people, the whole body, because the immune system is so strong in the skin. So that's a very important factor. Both the innate and the adaptive immune systems are present in dermis, epidermis, hypodermis. Very powerful. So the Neogenesis technology resets the immune system very quickly from inflammation to pro-repair. So immediately, and this is true with like bug bites. You know how quickly a bug bite can induce redness, soreness, and pain and itching. And we see that scientifically in the laboratory, that you have a very quick response to these molecules to set that reduced inflammation, pro-repair. And if you think about it in the skin, peppered throughout the skin are these stem cells. And if you have an open wound, there's not a high concentration of these stem cells around the wound to immediately bring down inflammation and start the repair. The blood is predominating at the wound. But with the Neogenesis technology, we've taken cells, stem cells from the skin, from the dermis, the hypodermis. We've concentrated them in our culture and stimulation vessels. We've caused them to naturally release the molecules. And so you have a concentration of these naturally occurring molecules in the Neogenesis bottle. You apply that to the skin where the wound is, then all of a sudden you have a nice concentration right there where you need the inflammation quelling, the pro-repair molecules. You have a nice concentration of them right there to reset what the blood is doing to you. So you're essentially taking that system down in inflammation, and you're instituting in the damaged skin a kind of a embryonic like pro-repair where there's no inflammation, no scarring.
So my next question is, if somebody's using this, a lot of people are using this in oncology for radiation, or if you're using, like I had to use it for a surgical wound, how should we be applying this? Should it be twice a day? Should it be multiple times a day? Is more better? What is the best approach so we can get the best results?
Yeah, I always first like to say use just a nice thin layer of the recovery over the afflicted area. And if you use too much and it's dripping, it's a relatively expensive product. You're wasting your money, so please don't do that. So just a nice thin layer over the affected area. We find that for the more severe conditions, that if you can apply it lightly, certainly at first, maybe 2 or 3 times daily, that really helps. If you can only manage to apply it once daily, yeah, it works. It helps greatly. And, once you institute repair, the calming of the inflammation, then you can start to bring the dose tighter back down. So instead of maybe 3, try 2 times. Muscles have a similar stem cell type to what we use that's in the hypodermis. The muscle has a very similar stem cell. When you exercise the muscle, the stem cells in the muscle release some of the same molecules that Neogenesis has. And they've actually, 2 weeks ago, it was published in Nature, they found out finally some of the molecules that are released from the muscle as you exercise that go into the brain. Irisin is one of the molecules that enables you to sprout new synapses in the brain and have better cognitive function. Scientifically found out now. Nice peer-reviewed publication. But so moving the body, sleeping, eating well, you're feeding the skin from the inside out, critical to healthy skin. You need sunlight, but not too much. Actually, sunlight not only helps the immune system through the production of vitamin D, but sunlight itself, not through the vitamin D pathway, better enables T cells, adaptive immune cells, to be anti-inflammatory, pro-repair. So a little bit of sunlight is actually very good. So all of this in combination with the Neogenesis technology is going to be critical to maintaining beautiful skin. Healthy skin is beautiful skin.
Yes.
And being able to repair that skin. People are going to vary in how much they need to dose themselves based on what they're afflicted with, what the insult was. Is a diabetic ulcer very hard to treat? We help those people out greatly, and they need to constantly put the Neogenesis recovery onto those wounds to help it repair. We had one of the first real world conditions I dealt with was a lady who got a Fraxel laser treatment, and they dialed up the amount of irradiation just too high on her very sensitive, beautiful white Polish skin, just beautiful white porcelain skin, but very sensitive. And it was damaged for a year. And she found out, she's very busy, and she was just using the recovery sometimes twice daily, but oftentimes just once daily. And literally within a little over 30 days, that spot became so faint that you really had to look closely to see it. And if she put any little bit of makeup on at all, you could not see it whatsoever. So, the point is for her, it wasn't a deep, heavy, scarred wound, and just once a day was sufficient to heal that. So I would say, use your knowledge, your intuition about how much you need. Don't over apply the recovery, but you may need to use it twice or 3 times daily. You may be able to bring the dosing titer down, maybe to once a week. And you can always talk to me or talk to Leah, talk to some of the other estheticians that use the technology who have experience with certain conditions. What is it they're seeing? What in the real world is the best dose? Often real world dosing, even in pharmaceutical products, is very different from what they saw in the clinical trial. Because the clinical trial, they cherry picked the patients. And in the real world, the patient set is quite different. So I would say, if you have questions, ask the experienced esthetician what her or his experience is in the particular condition you have. See what they recommend.
The last question, and it might not even make it into the video, but as you were talking, I was just kind of like thinking in my head. When it comes to radiation, I know that putting recovery on is like super beneficial for like the burn, but how about for somebody who has to get radiation like on the scalp? Will this help the hair at all, like grow back or stay on? Or I'm just wondering, because my sister actually has brain cancer. She's had it for 10 years and all of her hair fell out. It's so brittle and dry now. And I'm just kind of thinking like, for the future, is this something that could benefit somebody who had to have radiation on the scalp?
Yes.
Oh, great.
So if you've been irradiated on any part of the body and seeing the so-called radiation dermatitis, this technology has been shown to remediate that condition. We're actually working with people we understand now through studies that applying such a product on the skin won't focus the radiation. So you won't be irradiated with a concentration of rays at a particular point, and that was a fear, always a fear that you would have some focusing effect of the radiation if you had a product on the skin before you went in to be irradiated, but that's been shown not to be the case. So you can use it before and or after. If you're uncomfortable using it before, just use it after to remediate, but we can actually help prevent the radiation dermatitis if you start using it a couple weeks before you begin your radiation treatment, specifically with the scalp. So when you look at hair follicles, and this is true in our hair thickening serum, the hair thickening serum has some overlap with what's in the recovery. So we use, in the hair thickening serum, we use the stem cells from the skin that surround the hair follicle.
Mm-hmm.
So basically that's the recovery technology. But then we also add in a stem cell type from within the follicle. And this is important because you can recondition the skin around the follicle,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps to maintain and bring back hair growth. It also helps, and it's a stem cell function, to make the pigment and to insert the pigment into the growing hair shaft. That is also stem cell dependent. So we also help to return the natural pigmentation, and we may not return it fully, but you'll at least see some return of pigment. Now, we've seen people with, beautiful bleach blonde hair, and they put our treatment on, all of a sudden they're brunettes again.
Oh no.
But that's because we're bringing back, facilitating the repigmentation of the hair shaft. So the short answer is yes. If you've had some sort of scalp treatment
Mm-hmm.
and you use the recovery, you'll recondition that skin. Very important to protect that skin, regardless of where it is, here or here. Recondition that skin, bring it back to a healthy state. Having been irradiated, damaged skin, that can be, a factor in future cancer. So you want to prevent that. You want to reduce inflammation, repair the matrix in the cells, but also because that skin surrounding the follicle is critical to hair development, hair growth, to pigmentation. It will also facilitate, to some degree, hair growth and repigmentation.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'll be sending her a few bottles when we get off of here. That's wonderful to hear. I'm so glad I asked. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, it is such a privilege to be able to listen to you. And again, thank you so much for helping me, helping my scar. You're absolutely amazing. And I love Neogenesis so much, of course, for helping me treat all of my clients, but now, specifically after my cancer. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure always, Leah, to work with you. Thank you so much for what you do and to help bring out the science, the technology, the information on the products, and all the wonderful questions you have that not only help educate our audience, but make me think about things too. So thank you for what you do.